Hello YouTube, I'm Elwirfy and today we're going to be working on the Predator tank. So to explain what I did, because I did a little stuff off camera, I pretty much glued down the front of these. As you can see, there's a little bit of glue residue. It'll get painted over, trust me. That side came out a little better. But keep in mind, this is a little more clamped down than this end, so it might even fill it with paint. Not sure yet. But the main point here is that now we finally get to move on to the rest of the treads because we have the cover parts locked in place. So how do we go about this? And again, yes, as you can clearly tell, it is a little bit off kilter, but again, it's not particularly noticeable. So what are some things we're gonna need to do? Well, actually, if you look at it, it's not actually that bad, because this plate here, this chest, you know, the centerpiece, does in fact need to be glued in at some point. So that's kind of cool, which means we're gonna need to think about how to make this fit. So obviously we can physically make that fit and it'll work out just fine. But I feel like this episode we just need to focus on the treads and explaining what the correct proper way to do that is. So as you know, as we clip them out here, let me reset them up. We have the two 3ers, two 2s, and let's see. Yeah. And 2 of the 1s, right? That's gonna go mirrored on each side of the track. So let's take a look at the longer side. So as you, actually, wait a minute. Yes, that makes sense. Sorry, I was thinking. So you take a look at which side it is, right? So this is the one with 2 prongs on the outside going in. So that means we actually are gonna go ahead and use the other set of them and grab a three-pronged one. So you see how it lines up? You can't do 2 and 2. You gotta do 3 to 2, so it locks in. And the pegs are on the correct side, so that way they'll slide right in. Like so. If they end up working. So it'll look like that, and that's how you I at least go about constructing the treads. So I'm going to go ahead and get some glue out. Let's go ahead and get our all-important glue. This is the most important tool at your disposal in 40K, in my opinion. So if I can stop shaking, and if it zooms in here, we'll go ahead and just glue across the top and on the wheels. I find putting glue on the wheels helps. Nothing wrong with that. Then we take our piece, right, and we're just going to go ahead and stick it on. I know it's going to be a little hard for you to see depending on your angle, but we take that and then we kind of adjust it a bit, really push it in, make sure that it's going to be locked down. Then we're just going to kind of wait a bit for a second to let it go. And we'll go ahead and do the other side. Let's go ahead and do the other side while we're waiting. So we look at the direction of the pegs. We know that this is a 2-prong on top because we have a 2-prong going up. So we know that this one will also, oh, hold on, sorry. We know that this one will also lock into place as soon as we do that. And again, we'll be painting all the treads black, so don't worry about the gray spots, which is good. So again, we're going to come over here. We're going to take our glue, and once again, we're just going to apply some glue onto the connection parts of the treads, and again, apply some glue to the wheels to make sure that the wheels are all very well connected and such. So then we go ahead and stick this piece on, and again, we're going to move it around slightly just to make sure that it stays in place. Oh, see, it slides around. That's what happens when you add glue. It's okay though. And then as soon as it's in place, you just kind of let it do its thing, right? And if you're having trouble for whatever reason, you can go ahead and put a little bit of glue, not too much, but a little bit of glue to fill in the tops of the treads. And again, since it's all being painted black, you won't really have much of an issue with that. And then I like to flip the tank over when we're doing this part. So we're going to go ahead and flip the tank over. Now if you want to be really productive, you can actually do the same thing on the other side. And maybe this will be a little bit easier of a way to physically show you. So once again, we're going to, before we glue, always before you glue, you take a look at this piece. This is a 3-prong piece. So that means this is actually the piece that goes on this side right here. See how that'll perfectly line up? Because if we put it over here, let's see what happens if we try and line up the pegs on this side. See, it's not gonna perfectly line up. Here, let me even zoom in a bit if I can. If the buttons will let me do that. So okay, focus for a second. Let the thing focus. So yes, we have these pegs here, right? And we're gonna need to put them here, but we actually can't do that. We're instead going to put them with, see how there's a 3-prong right there. We go ahead and take the 2-prong side with the pegs, once again there, and we line it up to make sure that it'll work with the big piece, which it will. It'll look, lock in perfectly. So again, we're going to need to apply some glue. So we go ahead and take our glue and we put it on, making sure that we cover up all the connection parts. Again, applying some glue to the wheels. I'm not using as much glue as you may think. So zoom out a little bit, just make it a little easier to see. Then we go ahead and take this and place it. Oop, accidentally knocked the glue over on there. We just hold it there for a second, because you want to make sure that it's going to stick. So we just kind of press it there, not really too much of a rush. And the wheels these are pretty easy parts of it. And once again, don't forget, you can always put a light amount of glue, not a lot, but just a little bit of glue on top, all the cracks, to make sure it'll really lock in place. And again, as I will continue to say throughout this, you can always use paint to cover up any glue mistakes, or at least that's what I do. And when I go out to play, no one ever says anything to me about, oh hey, your models don't look quite right. So again, as I will continue to say, because I've seen people make this kind of mistake before on the internet and such, where you're gluing, they try and show you how to glue things and they do it wrong. So you take the prongs that are sticking out, the bits that are poking up, then you go ahead and look over at make sure it lines up. You fit it in first to make sure that's good. And of course, as you can see, that will definitely lock up. So then we take our glue and we're going to go ahead and glue the next bit. And I feel like in instructional videos, they really ought to be, more instructional, like going through step by step, instead of just, oh, now you glue the tracks on. Well, how do you do that? You have to show the process of when you're teaching something. When you teach anything, you have to actually show the process. So then we put it in and we just hold it there. You just want to hold it, hang on to it for a little bit. You don't want to, rush it or, panic or anything, but you just hold it there for a second. And then once again, I always like to fill in the gaps on the inside. So you come here and you just lightly, you're not using a lot of glue here. You don't need a lot. You just lightly fill in the cracks, the crevices, and then there you go. And what you're going to do then is wait for the first set of, of them to dry, and then you move on, and you're able to actually flip the tank over at that point. Which is why it's important you do them all at the same time, so that way, as you can see, like, you want to make sure they're all glued in at the same time, so when you flip it over, you won't have to go back or anything. And that looks, that looks pretty good. So while we're doing that, let's go ahead and talk about gluing the guns together, making the guns work. So once again, you want to look at that, make sure, okay, lines up pretty darn well, looks pretty darn stable. Over here, once again, pretty darn stable. So how do we know that we have to cut off some of it? Well, if you take a look at the gun, right, and say if we were to, let's be honest here, if I can just push this in, that'd be wonderful. But that's upside down. First off, let me think about how this will work. So the way the instructions say to do it, and again, you should always follow the instructions. So you put it in like so, like that. That'll be like that, and then this gun will be mounted onto the side, right? That's how it's going to look. So we need to think about. So this is the bottom, and you want to see if you can stick it in. Again, I recommend not spray painting beforehand because that kind of wrecks things a little bit. But if you can't make it go in, there is a solution. Here, let me just blow on this real quick. Blowing on stuff does help the glue to dry, and if the treads fall off again, don't freak out or panic. I mean, yeah, it sucks, but it's the reality of it. So you'll look at how this will go in, and yes, it'll lock in and all glued in place. And then you come down here and you see, oh, well, if I just did it as it is, with that, would it make sense? And yeah, I suppose you could do it like that, and yeah, it would lock in, and you could turn it outward a little bit to make the las cannon look a little better. But well, actually, I guess here, let me grab my cutting tool. So we're gonna take this. We're just gonna trim it a little. I'm making very minor trims here. You might not even be able to see it, but I am in fact trimming some of it. And you go ahead and feel free to wipe away some of the debris that comes from cutting it. Just lightly. We're not doing a ton. Alright, and then we're gonna see how that fits. That'll fit perfectly. I'll need glue. That's not permanent. So you know that's how high up it is. And I know that I want this gun here to be like that. And I'm not sure yet if I want to have it hug or if I want it to be a little out. I might do a little out because hugging it would be a bit tough. And you should always look at the instructions to make sure that it's going correctly. So let's go ahead and take a look at how the instructions are done. And yes, I'm doing it the more difficult way. Fully aware of that. So take a look at the instructions. First part, we build the gun. Then we flip to the page that shows you the actual assembly of the side weapons. Let me see here. Side weapons, side weapons. A lot of rustling of paper to definitely make sure you guys are aware that I'm not just going off camera to do something weird. Yeah. So if you look at the diagram right here, you can see that we put it in correctly. That's fine. And then this top bit is supposed to go straight through, and that's what it's supposed to do. All right, like it's supposed to just cleanly fit through, and it should, very very much so. It should. So say we take this piece and we just want to, but you can't force it in. You see, it's just a little too big. Now something I like to do is I like to just kind of cut off the top bit, then do a big thick layer of glue and call it good. So it'll actually only be that far off from the cannon, making the guns raised up. You know, if we come over here to our tank, making the guns a little higher up on the tank, so it won't. There's no risk of it dragging on the ground or getting too horrifying like that. So we're gonna do that. I guess. I kind of want to wait a little bit. Well, okay. Let's just go. The treads seem to be on pretty well. Let's go ahead and just go straight to the. Yeah, let's go straight to just moving on to the rest of the treads. It's just going to be a video about the treads. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Won't rush it. We'll do the guns separately because it can be admittedly a little frustrating to get those guns on, those side guns. But once they're on, they're like on. The way I do it, there's no way they're coming off unless I tried to break them. So the next step is actually going to be the one piece, the little single piece, because that's going to be the bend in it, right? So we're going to take, actually that's completely the wrong piece. So you take the one piece, and it's the same principle. It's the same exact principle. You find the piece that will line up with the correct one. Yeah, this one goes with this one. Excellent, and you can see it. It perfectly helps out with the bend. It'll work great. And then the tour, I dropped a piece, but it's gonna slide in there. It's gonna just slide in when you pick up a piece. Be very careful when you're doing this stuff. You don't want to drop pieces accidentally. So the reason why we need this held up is because in order to make this work, we're gonna actually need to have it on its, like, raised up. And this is what I like to keep the box around for. I just like to keep the box so that way we can have something to lay the tank up against while we do this part. So let's go ahead and bring it into the shot so you guys can see it. Once again, we grab our single one piece, move it around so that way it'll fit. Oh, this one goes with this tank, so let's go ahead and pre-line that up to make sure it'll look, right. Make sure it looks good. Find the other piece that will correctly line up with that. Need a 3-prong that goes. Here it is. So this piece that's right here, again, making sure that it's lined up right. You got the peg and the 3. Lay it right down, just to make sure beforehand before we start the gluing. And this is the most easy piece to fall off. So when you glue in with small pieces, since there's less surface area, you generally got to take a little bit of a different approach, which is, it's fine. It's not going to be too big of a hindrance. So I like to pick up the piece, take our glue, and this is where you kind of want to do a little more glue. Just kind of heavily coat it on there, and then you stick the piece right on using 2 hands. I know I'm blocking the shot a little, but you can see how that'll line up almost perfectly. The rest of the tank, right? And then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Oh, don't forget, little bit of glue on the connection bit. Again, not worrying too much about whether or not there's going to be glue showing, because if glue shows, doesn't really matter. So yeah, lather it on a lot. You really want to do a thick layer amount of glue, especially for this part. And we can actually go ahead and move on. Okay, I don't need to fill in glue with that because I saw glue spurting out, so I know it's gonna be solid. So again, you want to go ahead and just let that sit. Just let it percolate. Let it do its thing. No reason to worry about that. And we kind of wait for that to glue. So I'm gonna wait for that to dry, and then I guess we'll move on to the other side. We're gonna flip the tank over, and we're gonna do it the other way because I like to go in stages. I like to get through, make sure all my 1 pieces get used, then all of my 2 pieces. Why do I have 3 1er pieces? Is it a spare? I think they gave me an extra 1er piece, which I'm not complaining about at all. Not really too sure why they would do that, but I have an extra 1er piece, which is good. So it means that, I have 3 extra 1 pieces. No reason for that. I still have the 4 2er pieces, but I've already used 2 1er pieces, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but who knows? Maybe it'll change in a little bit. Alright, so now that the small pieces are now done gluing, now we have to go ahead and move on. We're going to move on to the 2er pieces. So again, it's the same principle here. You match it up, and you want to line it up, so that's not going to be the correct piece. You're actually going to want to make sure you can find, like this piece will work perfectly. So let me show you how that'll line up. You want to be careful with this piece. I'm actually gonna move that, so you can see it. All right, I'm gonna zoom in a bit. Just do some zooming in. So the way it works is I like to take this piece and you kind of slide it in. Right? And here's the thing, you did a good job if it can slide in. If for whatever reason it can't slide in, then that means it's a little messed up. Now you gotta be careful, because it is gonna get stuck. Don't worry about the gray paint. Don't worry, we'll roll the glue all over it. We'll paint over that and it'll look great. Trust me on this. It'll look great. Just wait for the painting section. The painting section will come, because I know that's something a lot of people like to see. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply some glue. And here's the cool, important thing. There, you want to put some glue on that. If you can see it, on the inside, there's actually some like a brace almost on the inside that the tread's gonna rest on. That you want to make sure you're resting it on. Then you're gonna go ahead and just slide it in there carefully. You know, don't force anything, but make sure it comes out nice. And then boom, it's connected. Oh, don't forget. Put some glue on to the center parts to make sure it all locks in. And then you have yourself a full section of the tire tread. And we'll go ahead and do it on the other side as well. And then off camera, I'm probably going to do the other two, just so it goes a little bit faster, so you guys don't have to watch every single little bit. So this piece, once again, line it up, make sure it'll fit inside there beforehand. So it will. So then we take our nice glue. Then we go ahead and pour it on. Well, not pour it. We're just kind of filling up the space. Again, tilt it up a bit. Put it on the... Oh, sorry, you can't see it. Tilt it up a bit. Put it on the inside. That'll help brace the tank tread. Then you want to go ahead and making sure it's lined up right. Go ahead and slide it in. Don't have to push too hard. It's not well, it's treat everything when you're building it like it's incredibly fragile, because it is. The last thing you want to do is break this part, especially since things are going inside of the tank. You really want to make sure everything's good. And again, as I'll bring it up, go ahead and put some glue to fill in the cracks, and then you will have yourself a tank. Well, of course, we still gotta do the middle part. We can actually, we can go ahead and do that now, I suppose. Go ahead and, we're gonna take this and, all you gotta do is you gotta line it up to make sure it's gonna fit. And, put it in. Right, so it looks good. And then the way I like to do this one, because, yeah, it's gonna be a little wonky. So you notice it's not perfect. It's not gonna be perfect, but that's okay, because we can clamp it down and we can use some glue for that part that's not working. So what I like to do is I like to go to this top part and just run a little line of glue across the top, and that will generally, that's going to be enough. Again, running a streak across. Don't overdo it, but I like to put a lot in there because, I don't know, works for me. Then the important part is we're going to take this and we're going to tip it and just put glue onto the inside of there. Really want to make sure that it's going to go ahead and fill up inside. Then we clamp it down. Oh, sorry. Then we're going to clamp it down. And if for whatever reason you're having trouble, I like to grab these pliers here. And here, let me zoom out for you so you can see what's going on. Oh, wrong way. Let me zoom out. So as you see, I'm just clamping it down. Then I'm going to take these plier things here and we're just going to hold it. Here. Hold on, it's getting a little precarious. So what I'm doing is I'm resting it up against this. Then I'm going to be taking these clamps and kind of squeezing it together. Then I use these clamps to essentially lock it in place. Okay. Damn. Okay. It'll be fine. I'll just hold it. You can always just hold it. I just like using clamps because then I can walk away and do other things. But you can always simply just hold it down, and it'll be fine. And it looks fine, you know. It looks okay. Is it a little bit off? Sure. That's normal. It happens. You know, that tank, yeah, I can see where it's off. But in order to make everything fit, you kind of got to take a little bit of sacrifices. And it doesn't really hurt the tank. It's not really like it's going to be the end of the world. So, yeah. Just kind of press it in there. Make sure it fits. And hang on to it. And that's going to be it for this section, I'd say. We'll move on to the guns and mounting the top part later. So, anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm Elwirfy, and I'll see you guys next time.